Shalom, family. Most High in Christ bless. Can everybody hear and see me? Can everybody hear and see me? Just type yes if you can. All right, all praises, all praises. Is there a brother online that can scribe for me? If you can, just type yes, I can scribe. All right, so we're going to be picking up last week, or not last week, yesterday, they ended off on Psalms 38, chapter 38. So we will be picking up on Psalms 39 through 42 with the four chapters a day. So we'll get started in a minute. Just want to give everybody a second to get on. So once again, is there a brother online that can scribe for me? All right, all praise. We'll go ahead and get started. Once again, we're starting with Psalms chapter 39 through chapter 42. So last week they left off in 38. It was basically going over um, King David asking for mercy from the Lord from his sin that he committed. As a lot of us know who've read the history, the sin that he did commit, he murdered Uriah the Hittite and he committed adultery. So prior to this is basically almost basically a continuation of what he's speaking about in Psalms chapter 38. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. So Psalms chapter 39 and verse 1. It says, I said, I will take heed to my ways, that I sin not with my tongue. I will keep my mouth with a bridle while the wicked is before me. So David is saying he's going to keep his mouth with a bridle. A bridle is basically the bit that you see in a horse's mouth that you use to move them, whichever way you want. So a bridle is a restraint, basically. So he's saying I'm going to restrain my mouth when I'm before the wicked, or the wicked is before me. I was dumb with silence. I held my peace, even from good, and my sorrow was stirred. So he says I was dumb with silence, meaning he was lost in words. And this is a continuation of what we read in chapter 38, where you read, let's see, Let me see 1 second. So basically, in chapter 38, where the those that saw his affliction, they mocked him, and he had nothing to say in that moment. But the scriptures can be seen different ways as well. So when you look, it says, "I will keep my mouth with a bridle while the wicked is before me. I was dumb with silence. I held my peace, even from good, and my sorrows were stirred. My heart was hot within me. While I was musing, the fire burned. Then spake I with my tongue." So he's basically saying, I held my tongue amongst the wicked. And as I thought, the fire burned, meaning he's become more and more frustrated. Verse 4 says, "Lord, make me to know mine end and the measure of my days. What is it, that I may know how frail I am?" So this is him going through his affliction. So the affliction, I want to just jump back to 38 so we know what we're talking about. 38 and verse 38 and verse let's start at 38 and 1 just so y'all know exactly what affliction we're talking about. So 38 and 1 says, "O Lord, rebuke me not in thy wrath, neither chasten me in thy hot displeasure. For thine arrows stick fast in me, and thy hand presseth me sore. There is no soundness in my flesh, being of thine anger, or because of thy anger. Neither is there any rest in my bones because of my sin." So he's going through affliction because of his sin. "For my iniquities are gone over my head, and an heavy burden they are too heavy for me. My wounds stink and are corrupt because of my foolishness. I am troubled, and I am bowed down greatly. I go mourning all the day long. For my loins are filled with the loathsome disease, and there is no soundness in my flesh." So he's going through tribulation. So it's not just this disease that he has that he's dealing with. He's dealing with the opposition that he faced with Absalom trying to overthrow him. Absalom sleeping with his wives. There's a lot of things that happened after David committed the sin from killing Uriah and committing adultery. So back to Psalms 39 and uh, verse 4, it says, "Lord, make me to know mine end and the measure of my days. What is it, that I may know how frail I am? Behold, thou hast made my days as an handbreadth, and mine age is as nothing before thee. Verily, every man at his best state is altogether vanity." So he's saying that all men are vanity at their best state, meaning at your prime. At your prime, you are nothing. You can't measure up to God. So he says that barely every man in his best state is altogether vanity. "Surely every man walketh in a vain show. Surely they are disquieted in vain. He heapeth up riches and knoweth not who shall gather them." So men's lives are short, and the sentence for all death, for all flesh, is death. So when you die, you don't take wisdom, you don't take no riches, you take nothing with you. So he's mourning. He's basically talking about him going to his death. Let's just real quick. Let's go to Psalm 62 to help explain verse 5. It said, I'm gonna read it again. It says, "Behold, thou hast made my days as an handbreadth, and my age is as nothing before thee. Verily, every man at his best state is altogether vanity." So let's go to Psalm 62 and verse 62 and verse 9. It says, 62 and 9 says, "Surely men of low degree are vanity, and men of high degree are a lie. To be laid in the balance, they are altogether lighter than vanity." So he's basically letting you know that the life that we have is vain. Men in themselves are vain. It's a very short lived life that we have. So going back to Psalms 39 and verse 5 again, it says, "Behold, thou hast made my days as an handbreadth, and mine age is as nothing before thee. Verily, every man at his best state is altogether vanity." So you look at the age that the Lord cut our days from 900 days or however long he had given us originally to 120 days, 70 days, things like that. You don't see people getting past 100 years very often. So he says vain compared to the Lord. So verse 6 says, surely every man walketh in a vain show. Surely they are disquieted in vain. He heapeth up riches and knoweth not who shall gather, them. And now, Lord, what wait I for? My hope is in thee. Deliver me from all my transgressions. Make me not the reproach of the foolish. So he's basically asking the Lord, do not deliver him from this transgression. The same thing you read in Psalms 51, where he says, create in me a clean heart, or take away his iniquities. So that's what he's asking for at this moment. And this is something that, we got to take a note from is David committed a sin, a sin that a lot of us have not committed, murder and adultery. Many of us have not. But David still turned back to the Lord. He's asking for that forgiveness. So the same thing has to be with us. This has to be the mindset. So verse 9 says, I was dumb. I opened not my mouth because thou didst it. Remove thy stroke away from me. Yeah. I am consumed by the blow of thine hand. I mean, he's consumed with the iniquity, not with the iniquity, but with the afflictions that the Lord has given him. Verse 11 says, when thou with rebukes dost correct man for iniquity, thou makest his beauty to consume away like a moth. Surely every man is vanity, Selah. So when man commits iniquity, the Lord corrects. He says that he maketh his beauty to consume away like a moth. Surely every man is vanity. So when the Lord has to intervene, a lot of times people end up dying when they commit iniquity. So real quick, let's go to Job 24 and verse 9. Job 24 and verse 9. 19. So it says, drought and heat consume the snow waters. So does the grave those which have sinned. So the grave is what consumes those that commit iniquity, or those that commit sin. And that's what he's referring to. He says that in verse Psalms chapter 39, he says, when thou with rebukes does correct man for iniquity, thou makest his beauty consume away like a moth. So those that commit iniquity, the grave is waiting for those that commit iniquity. And this is something that we're supposed to keep in our minds as we walk through our walk, is that there's really one thing waiting for us if we're not keeping the commands, which is the grave. And for some that are keeping the commands, the grave may be waiting, but eternal life is waiting after that. But that's something that David understood. As you see that, David repented. So back to Psalms 39, we're going to verse 12. It says, hear my prayer, O Lord, and give ear unto my cry. Hold not thy peace at my tears, for I am a stranger with thee, and a sojourner as all my fathers were. O spare me that I may recover strength before I go hence and be no more. So he's saying, spare me or forgive my sins, and that I may recover strength, meaning I may bounce back before I go hence and be no more, meaning before he dies, let him recover himself, forgive him of his sins. And that should be the thought that we have. We have to be able to recover ourselves before we leave this earth, because nobody knows when they're going to die. You could die tomorrow. You could die in 2 seconds, straight bullets. You got a lot of things that could happen that could cause you to die. So your main focus should be, spare me that I may recover strength before I go hence and be no more. So before you go to the grave, you need to recover your strength and ask the Lord to do that for you. And that's exactly what it says in Psalms chapter 51. But real quick, let's go to Baruch real quick. Baruch chapter 4. Baruch chapter 4 and verse 28. So many of us come into the truth. Everybody's going to mess up and commits transgression. Everybody ends up in a situation that David ended up in, where he has to ask for forgiveness and be pardoned for his sins. And as well, as we keep reading, you'll see that the Lord continuously afflicted David for his iniquity. And a lot of us are being afflicted for our iniquities to this very day. And we have to come to the Lord with this mindset. So Baruch 4 verse 28 says, for as it was your mind to go astray from God, so being returned, seek him 10 times more. So when it's our mind to go astray, meaning we find ourselves in a bad predicament, we end up committing sin, whatever it is, um, whatever the sin may be, he says, seek him 10 times more. You return and you seek him 10 times more. So because you commit iniquity does not mean that you can't recover strength. Because he says that I spare me that I may recover strength before I go hence. So the Lord has that ability to do that. Real quick, let me see if I can find something. Just popped in my head. It's not in my notes though. Let me see. I had to look in a minute. I don't know exactly where it's at. But let's keep going. Let's go to Psalms chapter 40, verse 1. It says, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined unto me and heard my cry. So he's asking for the Lord to forgive him and show him mercy. And as he patiently waited, patiently waiting for the Lord, you're still keeping the commandments. You're not saying, you know what, I committed a transgression. The Lord has afflicted me. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. But he said he waited patiently for the Lord, meaning it says, and he inclined unto me and heard my cry. He only hears the cry of those that are keeping the commandments. So David is showing an example that he still kept pushing with the Lord, even though he was being afflicted for what he did. Verse 2 says, he brought me up also out of an horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my goings. So the Lord lifted up his spirit. He lifted him back up. He gave him that pardon and established his goings. So let's go to Proverbs chapter, let's see. Proverbs chapter 3 and verse, I'll start at 1. So remember the thought is, he brought me up also out of an horrible pit and set my feet upon a rock and established my going. So Proverbs 3 verse 1, it says, my son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. So let's jump down to verse 5. It says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. So he's showing you this is what happened. So if you acknowledge the Lord and continue to follow him and trust not in your own understanding, or in the case of David trusted in his own understanding. He went off for a minute and he turned back. He returned. So as he returned, he applied this. It says, trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. So he's going to direct your paths once you acknowledge him, meaning you keep his commandments. So back to Psalm chapter 40 and verse 3. It says, and he hath put a new song in my mouth, even praise unto God. Many shall see it and fear it, and shall trust in the Lord. Blessed is that man that maketh the Lord his trust, and respecteth not the proud, nor such as turn aside to lies. Many, many, O Lord my God, are thy wonderful works which thou hast done, and thy thoughts which are to usward, they cannot be reckoned, up in order unto thee. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. Sacrifice and offering thou didst not desire, my ears hast thou opened. Burnt offering and sin offering hast thou not required. So even back in David's time, he understood that sacrifices were not what the Lord wanted. And there's multiple different areas that you see the Lord he was not necessarily looking for the sacrifices. But let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 22, just to help explain what it is that David is saying here. So 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 22, it says, and Samuel said, Have the Lord as great delight in burnt offering and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. So he's saying that it's better for us to obey him than it is to give an offering, because that's what we did when it was time for us to ask for forgiveness back under Moses. That's what we did. We sacrificed and got forgiveness for our sins. But just real quick, just to show y'all what the real issue was with the sacrifice, is Hebrews chapter 10 in verse 1. I'm gonna make it quick. It says, "For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, the very image of the things, can never, with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually, make the comers thereunto perfect." So are we saying that these sacrifices could never make those people perfect because they gave them year by year, Day of Atonement. So they would give us sacrifice during the Day of Atonement, but he said they cannot make us perfect. But then would they had not have ceased to be offered, because that the worshippers once purged should have had no more conscience of sins. But in those sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. So sacrificing could not make us perfect. So the Lord, He wants obedience over sacrifice. So that's what He wants. He wants obedience over sacrifice. So back even in David's time, even before in Samuel's, they all understood that the Lord wanted obedience over a sacrifice. So because really, when you look at it, is sacrifice is just a show of your obedience. So, for instance, you look at the Pharisees. The Pharisees, they like to say they sacrifice. You couldn't get the kingdom without sacrifice, but they didn't keep the commandments. But those were the people that weren't able to make it to the kingdom because they were all show, they were all talk, but they weren't about obedience. So let's go back to Psalms 40. We're going to go to verse. We're going to read verse 6 again. It says, "Sacrifice and offering thou didst not desire. Mine ears hast thou opened. Burnt offering and sin offering hast thou not required. Then said I, Lo, I come. In the volume of the book it is written of me." So that's a hint at Christ. It says, "I delight to do thy will, O my God. Yea, thy law is within mine heart." So the will of God is keeping the laws of God. That's the will of God. He wants you to keep his commandments. That's the will. Verse 9 says, "I have preached righteousness in the great congregation. Lo, I have not refrained my lips, O Lord, thou knowest." So the great congregation he's referring to is Israel, is Zion. It's not referring to any other nations, no other people. It's referring specifically to um, the nation of Israel. So just real quick, let me see if I have it. Okay, Psalms 22 and 22, real quick, just to show the great congregation that he's speaking about is. It says, "I will declare thy name unto my brethren. In the midst of the congregation will I praise thee. Ye that fear the Lord, praise him. All ye the seed of Jacob, glorify him and fear him. All ye the seed of Israel." So the congregation that David is referring to is the seed of Jacob or the seed of Israel. Or that's the Israelites. That's who he's talking about. So it's not referring to any other nation. So if you're reading it and you're thinking of Esau, you're thinking of Ishmael, you're thinking of any other nation, it's not referring to them. It's referring to the Israelites. So let's go back to Psalms chapter 40. Let's go to verse 10. It says, "I have not hid thy righteousness within my heart. I have declared thy faithfulness and thy salvation. I have not concealed thy loving kindness and thy truth from the great congregation. Withhold not thou thy tender mercies from me, O Lord. Let thy loving kindness and thy truth continually preserve me. For innumerable evils have compassed me about. Mine iniquities have taken hold upon me, so that I am not able to look up. They are more than the hairs of mine head, therefore my heart faileth me." So what he's referring to is that the shame that came upon him for the things that he did. Not only that, a lot of people were aware of the sin that David committed. It wasn't like David committed this sin that nobody found out about. So let's keep going to verse 12. It says, "For innumerable evils have compassed me about, mine iniquities have taken hold upon me, so that I am not able to look up. They are more than the hairs of mine head, therefore my heart faileth." So it brought sorrow to him that he did this wickedness. And that's how a lot of us are when we commit wickedness or we commit a sin. When we get around the brothers and those that keep the commandments, the sorrow comes upon us because we know we weren't supposed to do that. We know that now we're amongst people that are supposedly keeping the commandments, and now we feel like we don't really fit in there because we slipped up. But that's the case. Everybody does slip up. But the example we're seeing here is that David was getting himself together. Let's see. Let's go to verse 13. Be pleased, O Lord, to deliver me. O Lord, make haste to help me. Let them be ashamed and confounded together that seek after my soul to destroy it. Let them be driven backward and that wish me evil. So at this time, if you go back to back to go back to chapter 38 and go to verse 11. It says, "My lovers and friends stood aloof from my sword, and my kinsmen stand afar off. They also that seek after my life lay snares for me, and they that seek my hurt speak mischievous things and imagine deceits all the day long. But I, as a deaf man, heard not, and was as a dumb man that opened not his mouth." So he had no room to speak for the things that he did. But there are people that spoke evil of him just for the when he stumbled, they spoke evil of him. So you read that verse. What's the verse I'm looking for? Verse. Let me see. Yeah, I'm not sure where it's at, but when David slipped and committed this iniquity, there were people that were looking for a reason to mock him. So let's go to verse. Let's go to Proverbs chapter. Let me see 1 second. Where did we leave off at? Verse 14. Let's go to Psalms 35 and verse 4 first. Psalms 35 and 4. It says, let's start at 3. It says, "Draw out also the spear and stop the way against them that persecute me. Say unto my soul, I am thy salvation." So this same thing that we have, not just towards the people that sought evil towards David, but our enemies to this very day. There's people that seek our evil. So look at the education systems, you look at the conditions of our people. It's obvious that we have nations that are trying to come against us. So this applies here as well. So verse 4 says, "Let them be confounded and put to shame that seek after my soul. Let them be turned back and brought to confusion that devise my hurt. Let them be as a chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chasten them. Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord persecute them. For without cause have they hid for me their net in a pit, which without cause they have digged for my soul." So there's nations. We got nations on this earth. Every nation outside the Israelites is in this category. They're trying to, like it says they for without cause have they hid for me their net in a pit. Without cause they have digged for my soul. So they're looking for the hurt of the Israelites. So now let's go to Proverbs chapter 24 and 17. But also we got to keep in mind people fall in this truth. I'm sure everybody who's part of a congregation has seen somebody be put out before. And you can't have the thought of all praises this person is out. The person failed. But Proverbs 24, verse 17, it says, "Rejoice not when thine enemy falleth, and let not thine heart be glad when he stumbleth." So he said, do not let your heart be glad when he stumbleth. That's what David did. So if your brother falls, somebody in this truth falls, you should not be glad when they stumble. And when he says enemy, you can have an enemy of your own people. Somebody that you don't get along with, somebody you have issues with. So it says, "Lest the Lord see it and it displease him, and he turn away his wrath from him." So when the Lord turns away the wrath from the man that you're mocking or the woman that you're mocking, he's going to turn it right to you. It's not going to be, "Oh, well, I mocked this man and that's it." The Lord's going to turn that on you. So from there, let's go back to Psalms. Let's go back to Psalms and let's go to verse 14 again. It says, "Let them be ashamed and confounded together that seek after my soul to destroy it. Let them be driven backward and put to shame that wish me evil. Let them be desolate for reward of their shame that they say unto me, aha, aha." They're mocking him. So he's saying, let them people be put to shame that mock me for my transgressions, for me slipping. Let also those that seek thee rejoice and be glad in thee. Let such as love thy salvation say continually, "The Lord be magnified." but I am poor and needy, yet the Lord thinketh upon me, and thou art my help, my deliverer. Make no tearing, O my God. Moving on to Psalms 41, verse 1. It says, Blessed is he that considereth the poor. The Lord will deliver him in time of trouble. This applies to the whole nation. We are the poor. We are the poor. Let's go to Isaiah real quick. Isaiah chapter 14 and verse, I think it's 32. It says, Blessed is he that considereth the poor. So the poor is Isaiah 14 and verse 32. It says, What shall one then answer the messengers of the nation, that the Lord hath founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall trust in him. So Zion is the Israelites. So the poor that the Lord speaks about, he speaks about in, I think it's Matthew 5 and Matthew 6, which says, Blessed is the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So same exact thing here, the poor are the Israelites. So back to Psalms chapter 41, verse 1, it says, Blessed is he that considereth the poor. The Lord will deliver him in time of trouble. The Lord will preserve him and keep him alive, and he shall be blessed upon the earth. And thou wilt not deliver him unto the will of his enemies. The Lord will strengthen him upon the bed of languishing. Thou wilt make all his bed in his sickness. I said, Lord, be merciful unto me. Heal my soul, for I have sinned against thee. My enemies speak evil of me. When shall he die, and his name perish? And this is wicked. This is, if you have this mindset towards your own people, that's another level. Now, other nations, I get it. They hate us. That's how they're gonna think of us. So I'm not surprised about that. But if you're in this truth, or if you're not in this truth, and you see your brothers, you have that type of hatred to them. It says, "My enemies speak evil of me. When shall he die, and his name perish?" Meaning, when will this man be buried in the ground? When will he just go? That's a high level of hatred. So it says, "And he shall see me, he speaketh, and if he come to see me, he speaketh vanity," meaning he's speaking um, flattering words. So he's not coming to you. He's coming to you with flattering words. So he said he speaketh vanity. His heart gathereth iniquity to itself when he goeth abroad and he telleth it. So he's slandering, speaking evil of you. One second. Psalms 41, verse 6. 1 second. Let's go ahead. Let's keep moving. Where we at? I said, be merciful unto me. Heal my soul, for I have sinned against thee. Mine enemies speak evil of me. When shall he die and his name perish? And if he come to see me, he speaketh vanity. His heart gathereth iniquity to itself. When he goeth abroad, he telleth it. All that hate me whisper together against me. Against me do they devise my hurt. An evil disease say they cleave fast unto him. So it says, an evil disease say they cleaveth fast unto him. And now that he lieth, he shall rise up no more. So they're basically rejoicing in the affliction and the disease that David acquired through his transgressions. So it says, an evil disease, say they, cleaveth fast unto him. So when you fall in this truth, the people will mock. It is what it is. Some spirits are built like that, where they will mock and bring hurt to the spirits of the people that has slipped in this truth. It says, and now that he lieth, he shall rise up no more. Meaning this man will be able to come back from this. This disease is going to take him out. It says, yea, mine own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, hath lifted up his heel against me. That's why it says a friend can only be known. I mean, you have no clue who your real friends are until and David's making mention. He said, my own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, had lifted up his heels against me. But thou, O Lord, be merciful unto me, and raise me up, that I might requite them, meaning repay them. So real quick, let's go to Micah chapter 7 and 8. So he said, he told the Lord to be merciful and raise him up, that he may repay them. Let's go to Micah chapter 7 and verse 5. 7 and verse 8. So Micah chapter 7, verse 8, it says, rejoice not against me, O mine enemy. When I fall, I shall, when I sit in darkness, meaning, and I'm in sin, the Lord shall be a light unto me, meaning he will show me the way to get it right. Verse 9 says, I will bear the indignation of the Lord because I have sinned against him, meaning I will bear the judgment of the Lord because I sinned. That's what happens to those that sin. They get judged. Until he plead my cause and execute judgment, he will bring forth to the light, and I shall behold his righteousness. Then she that is my enemy shall see it, and shame shall cover her which said unto me, where is the Lord thy God? Mine eyes shall behold her. Now shall she be trodden down as the mire of the streets. Because remember in Psalms it says, let's see. You know what? We're gonna get that in Psalm 42 in a minute. Well, let's continue in Micah chapter 7 and 10. It says, then she that is my enemy shall see it, and shame shall cover her, which said unto me, where is the Lord thy God? Mine eyes shall behold her. Now shall now shall she be trodden down as a mire of the streets, and the day that thy walls are to be built. So that's it. That's it. So he's letting you know that the Lord will fight on your behalf. He will plead your cause and execute judgment for you. So people may speak evil of you, or other nations speak evil of you, that other nations do evil towards you in any manner. The Lord, as long as you're doing what you got to do, the Lord will fight for you. So let's go back to Psalms chapter 41, and we're gonna go to verse. We're gonna go to verse 11. It says, by this I know that thou favorest me, because my enemy does not triumph over me. So David, he he did get afflicted. He did go through a lot of different things. Can everybody hear me? Somebody says the sound is going in and out. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear and see? Just let me know. Just say yes or no. How's the sound? Is it still going in and out, or is it good? Okay, all praise. Sounds good. All praises, all praises. Okay, let's continue. Somebody saying in and out. Still going in and out. Okay, I'm getting more in and outs. I mean, I'm getting more sounds good than in and out. So if it gets too bad, just let me know and I will restart it. So I'll keep an eye on the comments. But if it gets too bad, I'll restart it. If it's too bad, just let me know. So let's go back to Psalm chapter 44, and let's go to verse 10. It says, but thou, O Lord, be merciful unto me and raise me up, that I may requite them. By this I know that thou favorest me, doth not triumph over me. So you had David, he had his son trying to kill him and take the kingdom. You had many things happening in his time. But the way you know that the Lord showed favor on him was because they did not triumph over him. Meaning Absalom was not able to take the kingdom from David. And as for me, thou upholdest me in mine integrity, and setteth me before thy face forever. So let's go to Job 36 and 7. He says that um, As for me, thou upholdest me in mine integrity, meaning he kept him strong. He kept him strong. He kept him moving in the right spirit. It says, and settest me before thy face forever. Meaning he showed mercy unto David. So Job chapter 36 and verse 7. Job 36 and 7. Job chapter 36 and verse 7. It says, he draweth not his eyes from the righteous, or he withdraweth not his eyes from the righteous, but with kings are they on the throne. Yea, he doth establish them forever, and they are exalted. So he said, from the righteous, he doesn't take his eyes off of. So because they called David was called righteous, but he broke the commandments. So righteousness is not based upon if you never sin. Righteousness is if you're able to get yourself back up and keep it moving. And David is a perfect example of that. Like I said, he committed adultery and he killed him. He killed his own brother for no reason whatsoever, only to fulfill his lust. But he says, he withdraweth not his eyes from the righteous, but with kings are they on the throne. Yea, he doth establish them forever, and they are exalted. And if they be bound in fetters, and he be holden, and be holden in cords of affliction, meaning unless if they go off and he bounds them in cords of affliction, and he afflicts them, it says, then he showeth them their work and their transgressions that they have exceeded. So this is what happened with David. He was in affliction for the things that he did. The Lord afflicted him in many ways for the things that he did. Not only to mention his child, the child that he had, the child that he had was died. The child that he had died as well. So he had multiple things that he had to deal with after he committed the sin. So it says, verse 9, then he showeth them their work and their transgressions that they have exceeded. He openeth also their ear to discipline and commanded that they return from iniquity. So he says that he's going to open their ears in the discipline. So you may go off, but the Lord will still try to get you and plead with you if he wants you. That's the key point. If the Lord wants you, he's going to make sure he gets you. So if you go off, he's going to make sure he gets you right. It says, and commanded that they return. So if the Lord commands anything, it's no breaking that. The Lord wants you, he's going to get you. Verse 11, if they obey and serve him, they shall spend their days in prosperity and their years in pleasures. But if they obey not, they shall perish by the sword, and they shall die without knowledge. So that's what he means. He upheld David, upheld him in integrity, or he upheld his integrity. The Lord got him back right, and then eventually gave the kingdom to his son. So back to Psalm chapter 41, we're going to verse 13. Be sure to let me know how the sound is. I don't want to get through a whole nother chapter and y'all can't hear nothing, so just let me know. So Psalm chapter 42 and Psalms 42 and verse 1. It says, as the hart panteth after the brooks, after the water brooks, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. So a hart is a deer. Panting is basically drinking up water. So as the hart panteth after the water brooks, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. My soul thirsteth for God, for the living God, when I shall come and appear before God. Or when shall I come and appear before God? My tears have been my meat day and night, while they continually say unto me, where is thy God? This is the same thing I mentioned in Micah chapter 7. Because they mocked him and they said, where is your God? Because you're being afflicted, they're asking, where is your God? So it says in verse 3, my tears have been my meat day and night, while they continually say unto me, where is thy God? When I remember these things, I pour out my soul in me, for I had gone with the multitude. I went with them to the house of God, with the voice of joy and praise, with a multitude that kept holy day. Why art thou cast down, O my soul? And why art thou disquieted in me? Hope thou in God, for I shall yet praise him for the help of his countenance. O my God, my soul is cast down within me. Therefore will I remember thee from the land of Jordan and of the Hermonites, from the hill Mizar. Deep calleth unto deep at the noise of thy waterspouts. All thy waves and thy billows are gone over me. So all thy waves, he's talking about the affliction. The waves are as affliction. So all his waves, all his afflictions have gone over him. Yet the Lord will command his loving kindness in the daytime, and in the night his song shall be with me, and my prayer unto God of my life. I will say unto God my rock, why hast thou forgotten me? Why go I mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? As with a sword in my bones, my enemies reproach me, while they say daily unto me, where is thy God? Why, why art thou cast down, O my soul? And why art thou disquieted within me? Hope thou in God, for I shall yet praise him, who is the health of my countenance and my God. So, real quick, let's go to a somewhat similar situation. Job was in a similar situation, and his situation was not because he committed sin, but the point I'm making with this is the affliction that he had to go through. So Job chapter 30 in verse 16. Job 30 and 16. Well, I started, 16. Yep. It says, and now my soul is poured out upon me. The days of affliction have taken hold upon me. My bones are pierced in me in the night season, and my sinews take no rest. By the great force of my diseases, my garment changed. It bindeth me about as the collar of my coat. He hath cast me into the mire, and I am become like dust and ashes. So I become as a dead man. I cry unto thee, and thou dost not hear me. I stand up, and thou regardest me not. Thou art become cruel to me. With thy strong hand thou oppressest thyself against me. Oh, I'm sorry, opposes thyself against me. So this is the same situation that David was in. This is the same thing that David was saying. The Lord was opposed to David at some point because of his sin. He was opposed to him. He did not listen to him at some point. He wasn't listening when he was afflicting him. But after David started to turn around, the Lord started to listen. Verse 22 says, thou lifted me up to the wind. Thou castest me to ride upon it, and dissolvest my substance. For I know that thou wilt bring to death, bring me to death, and to the house appointed for all living, which is the grave. Howbeit he will not stretch out his hand to the grave, though they cry in his destruction. Did not I weep for him that was in trouble? Was not my soul grieved? When I looked for good, then evil came unto me. And when I waited for light, there came darkness. Let's see. That's it. That's it for this. But it's kind of similar situation. He's giving a description of the type of afflictions that he went through and how the Lord dealt with him. He turned his back on him. He was opposed to him. That's a situation that a lot of us end up in if we lose sight of what we're supposed to be doing, which is keeping the commandments. So that looks like that is it. Let me see if I have anything else real quick. Okay, this is the last thing I missed it in my notes. Sirach chapter 8 and verse 5. This goes back to what the situation with the enemies coming against the enemies. I mean, what I mean by enemies is those of his own people. Um, so those that are Israelites coming against David and speaking evil of David is Ecclesiasticus or Sirach chapter 8 and verse 5. It says, reproach not a man that turneth from sin, but remember that we are all worthy of punishment. Dishonor not, that's it. Reproach not a man that returneth from sin, but remember that we are all worthy of punishment. So that was the issue with these. The Lord said he would requite them, or he would stand up for David for the way that they dealt with him, because he was turned away from sins, but they reproached him for it. So that is it for the 4 chapters. We read 39 through 42. Are there any questions on what we've read so far? Any questions on Psalms 39 through 42? Any questions on what we've read so far? Pause. Exactly, exactly. He says, "Well, punishment for sins drives you back to the Most High." Yep, that's Hosea 5:15. That's exactly what happens. When we get afflicted, we go back to the Lord. That's what should happen. We call upon the Lord. Even those in the world, when affliction comes, when things are going wrong, they call on the Lord. Now, is He hearing them? Not always, but um, essentially, that's the way that the Lord gets us back. The last scripture I read was before the end of the chapter was Job 30 and verse 16 through 28. Job 30 verse 16 through 28. And then after that, I read Psalms 40, 42. I finished Psalms 42. That was it. You know what? let me read something else real quick. It kind of goes along with what. Oh, right, you're right. Thank you. That was Sirach 8 and 5. That was the last one I read. But I'm about to read another scripture real quick that goes along with the enemies that came against David. Makes a good point about the affliction as well as the situation he was in. It's Second Samuel chapter 16 and verse 10. 2 Samuel 16 and 10. It says, "And the king said, What have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord has said unto him, Curse David. Who shall who shall then say, Wherefore hast thou done so?" So this is when Absalom was trying to come and take the kingdom from his father. So it says in verse 11, "And David said unto Abishai and to all his servants, Behold, my son, which came forth of my loins, seeketh my life." So there was enemies that took his life, which was his own son. How much more now may this Benjamite do it? Let him alone, and let him curse him, for the Lord hath bidden him. So he said the Lord had bidden him to curse David. It may be that the Lord will look on mine affliction, and that the Lord will requite me good for his cursing this day. So the Lord essentially is the one that cursed David. And through that, he said, we're looking upon his affliction that he received through man, that he will repay him good. So then it says, verse 12, "And as David and his men went by the way, Shimei went along on the hillside over against him and cursed as he went and threw stones at him and cast dust." So I just wanted to add that the key point was where it says, "It may be that the Lord will look on mine affliction, and that the Lord will requite me good for the cursing this day." So us being cursed and us receiving afflictions, we're gonna receive a reward for overcoming it. Say Psalm at the end of Psalms 39. Did you say Luke 4:28? I don't think so. Let's see. Psalms chapter 39. Let me see. No, at the end of Psalms 39. Um, no, it was Baruch 4:28. That's what it was. Baruch 4:28 is what I read after Psalms 39 at the end. Johanan. That's what I read. Baruch 4:28. All right, all praises. Pray everybody was edified. Just continue to watch on, continue to follow along with the four chapters. With that, we say shalom, most high in Christ bless.